Good afternoon, Good Shepherd, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Good to be with you on this day when we can sort of drive around again, unless the plows have not made it to your neighborhood, but they have made it to ours, and there are places in front of the church to park. So anyway, it's been good to get the snow and all of the moisture that the snow has brought. And again, happy wearing of the green day. A few things today, mostly just to make sure that y'all are aware of the plans for Holy Week and Easter. They are being publicized, and you have seen opportunities in emails coming out, opportunities for signing up for pre-consecrated hosts for Palm Sunday, as well as hosts on Palm Sunday, hosts this coming Sunday, hosts on Easter. I know it's confusing, and we've tried our best to make it as clear as possible for you to understand. If you make some mistakes, or if you've got any questions, please let us know, and we'll try and help you through those. But we're getting close, and the plans are underway. Wanted to say one thing about Maundy Thursday. I've mentioned before that this will be sort of a hybrid service, and we'll have more instructions coming out next week. But the plan is, or the thought is, that we will do this as an agape meal, a love feast, and that people will eat at home, and that we will do that on Zoom. We'll be eating together on Zoom. And there are some lessons and prayers that go with that. And so we will eat together and pray together, and bless our food together on Zoom on Maundy Thursday. And so the meal that you would prepare would be your own. The recommended meal is very simple. Could be bread and olives and cheese, or a simple soup. But this is not a major feast day in that regard, where you want to pull out all the stops. But again, we'll have some more information about that coming out next week in terms of what that would look like. But it will be a hybrid service on Zoom, so we'll be together. So I hope that our explanations are helpful for all of that. And again, I apologize for the confusion, but it's kind of the way that it's turning out this year, and we'll make our way through it. Earlier this week, I was reading in the daily office lectionary from the prophet Jeremiah, and I was struck by a couple of verses, and this is from Jeremiah 16, verses 14 and 15. And Jeremiah, or Jeremiah's the prophecy goes, he writes, "But the time is coming, declares the Lord, when no one will say, 'As the Lord lives, who brought up the Israelites from the land of Egypt.' Instead, they will say, 'As the Lord lives, who brought up the Israelites from the land of the north and from all the lands where he has banished them. I will bring them back to the land that I gave to their ancestors.'" And what struck me about that is that the Israelites had for centuries a story, an origin story, what constituted them as a people. That story had to do with their departure from Egypt, the whole Exodus story. And that helped them understand who they were. They were brought together by God out of Egypt, and they settled Palestine, or settled Canaan, and became an established people. Over the course of centuries, of course, that changed, and the Babylonians overran them and took many of them off to Babylon. Others were sent or were dispersed around the Mediterranean. And so what Jeremiah is pointing to here is that now there's going to be a new story, a new origin story that says, this is who we are now. No longer are we going to talk about coming out of Egypt. That's old news. Now the news is we're being brought together from all of the places where we've been dispersed. And I was just struck by the opportunity to write new stories that tell who we are. And I know I've read the history of Good Shepherd, and For those of you who don't know, I'm certainly not going to go through all the history, but for those of you who don't know, the congregation was formed 45, 50 years ago. And it was originally formed, and the initial group of those people met in the basement of the priest who became the first rector, Father Art LeClaire. And among some of those folks, they refer to each other as the basement people. Their origin story has to do with being formed in the basement of Art LeClaire's rectory, and then growing, meeting in other places, and then building this building. And that's the origin story of Good Shepherd. And now we've been away from the building for a year, and it's been almost a year to the day. And we won't really be back in it in sort of a usual way for another several months. And we have the opportunity to write a new story. The old story won't go away. That is there, but we get to write a new story because the congregation will be formed in a new way after our time scattered around the Denver area or even around the country. And that's pretty exciting. I think that's a novel opportunity to think about how we rewrite or write another story that tells who we are now. And it will include all of that old stuff, certainly, but it will include Zoom. It will include a baptism in the parking lot. It will include lighting of the new fire in my backyard last year. It's not going to be there this year. It's going to include a whole lot of things that create a new story about who we are as a people of Good Shepherd. And that's exciting. And so I invite you to imagine, what will that new story be for you? How would you write that story if you were going to sit down and type it out or write it out longhand or draw a pictorial history? What would that story look like? How would you convey the excitement of coming back together as a new people? How would you tell that story? Like the Israelites for many years said, this is our story. We came out of Egypt. And then Jeremiah says, now you're going to tell a different story. We were drawn from all of these other places and reconstituted as a people. How are we going to tell that story? How would you tell that story? How would you be a part of creating that story? And that's the question I sort of want to leave you with. I've mentioned before that the vestry is putting together a couple of committees, task forces, to figure out how we will come back together. And this will be part of that story. So if you have interest in helping us determine what kind of technology we will need to be the new Good Shepherd when we come back, let me know. There's a digital church task force that's being put together. If you have interest or expertise in those kinds of areas, please let me know. If you have interest in how we reconstitute ourselves in terms of the physical gathering, the service times, what those services look like, all of that kind of stuff, please let me know. That's the other main task force, and what that will look like, because it won't look the same. And so we're going to be rewriting these stories. When the Israelites came back from Babylon, they rewrote their story and had new things that they added on top or substituted for things that they had left. That's the new story we get to write. And I think it's very exciting. And I want to have as many people in the congregation involved as we can get, keeping the committees in reasonable size, of course, but we'll certainly know and be in contact with everybody to figure out how all of this will work for us. And so that the story isn't one group's story, but the story of the whole people of Good Shepherd. So I look forward to engaging you in this story writing process, this story creation process, so that sometime down the road when somebody else is writing the history of Good Shepherd, they will say, well, they used to talk about meeting in the basement of Art LeClaire's. Now that's part of it, but now there's this new other part that they had to deal with when they came out of COVID. And who knows, somewhere down the future, there will be yet another retelling of the story, another reconstitution story that will just keep going as Good Shepherd keeps going and growing. Look forward to seeing you soon. Blessings, my friends.